Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for agreeing to join me today. So sorry about the last appointment there.
No worries. Life's in session. It happens all the time.
Well, these are meant to be very informal and mostly just like a career profile for people who are interested in different aspects of the environmental field.
Okay.
So maybe to get started, if you wanted to go over your journey to get to where you are now and maybe a little bit about what inspired you to start Dataspire.
Sure. Where to start? It's been a meandering journey. So I was planning to become an environmental scientist, fisheries biologist, sea turtle biologist of sorts. Like I was always interested in the environment and did research as an undergraduate, and that was great, but I wanted a break before I went to graduate school. And so I got a position doing outdoor and environmental education and fell in love with it. And we all joke, we were like, why didn't I think that I was an educator at heart? And so I did environmental education for a couple of years in different places around the United States. And then what did I do? Oh, then I got my teaching credential to go into the classroom because I was really liking teaching, but then I was missing the science. And so then I went back and got my science degree in fisheries conservation biology, and I was missing the teaching. And so I was sort of jumping back and forth between the two over time, and was trying to kind of find this needle of how do we inspire people about the environment and get kids interested in the environment through real world science and applications. And so landed in that space of like trying to connect students with real world research projects, and discovered over and over again that kids and teachers were struggling with their data skills, like how to actually work with the data. And so almost 6 years ago, I started Dataspire, where we support both in classroom and out of classroom teachers on how to help kids build their ability to make sense of data and um, work with data, understand how to explore data as a tool in our toolkit to understanding and caring for the environment. So it was a meandering path. Always education and always something about the environment were different components along the way, but lots of steps along the way before I got here.
Yeah, that seems to be the case for many people in the environmental field. Usually they start out in something different. They take that one class that inspires them and they go, oh, that's what I wanted to do. Good to know.
Yeah.
And then that takes them on a whole journey in itself. And sometimes even that journey, when you think you know what you want, ends up being meandering in itself and how to get there, especially when you're starting your own company, for goodness sake.
Yeah, I
And
mean, I was always really interested in the environment and the ocean, and the rest of my family appeased me, I would say. Like that was not the way that um they are wired. And so I thought I had this track. Like I thought I was going to be a scientist from here on out, and that's how I was going to do things. And then education sort of popped up as this, oh wait, that's at the core of what I'm really excited about doing, inspiring and empowering people to learn more and participate and make good choices. And so then it was okay, well, how do I weave this together and not lose what I thought was my track, but pursue this other piece that I'm interested in? And what does that look like at different steps along the way of life and moving and partner and having kids and all of those different pieces. So yeah, it was
yeah,
not a linear track that had a big that had a big return. But
yeah, there's your career goals and that crazy journey, and then there's trying to have a life at the same time as that as well. That always throws a wrench into every plan you have too, but can also make it better. And so I would think having children now would also improve your understanding of how to teach kids or how they think or things like that, seeing it firsthand as well.
yeah, it's definitely provides good motivation every day to do what I do.
And it's cheap crowdsourcing for what they're interested in, I suppose.
I do a lot of like, what do you think about this? Or my kid said this the other day. Like, let's run with this and see how we can do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they're full of great ideas, and I think they know how they best learn, even though
Yes.
they're still learning how to learn. And I think that's a really big component of being an educator in any capacity is listening to how they know themselves and what they are interested in. Because, like with anybody, but especially with kids, if they're not interested in what you have to say, it doesn't matter whatever it is that you're teaching them, they're not going to absorb it in the same way. So that's what I think what you do is so fantastic because it bridges that gap, especially for educators who maybe aren't as familiar with teaching environmental education on how to make something that is very seemingly boring until you have an interest in it, interesting and engaging and able to be retained, especially by younger audiences.
Yeah,
Um,
and sparking that curiosity is something that I've is sort of this common through line, either pursuing my own curiosity or sparking that curiosity in others, because I feel like that's so critical, right? The facts are facts and da 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 da. But if you're not curious, if you're just absorbing them because you're being told you have to, that's really different than being able to kind of create that spark of for retaining as you're talking about, but then also going forward and asking other questions and pursuing that next opportunity. And I feel that's one thing that I so appreciate about the teachers, many of the teachers I had was sort of fostering that curiosity in me. And I try to bring that forward into the work that we do. How are we shifting something from what could be considered boring or just rote into a no, like let me engage you and get you excited about this, and then you can take it far more, much farther than I ever could. And that ripple effect is what I think is such a joy of being an educator, and holding on to that is exciting.
For sure, for sure. I think it's when you learn something young and it's your new favorite thing that you've ever learned, you tell everybody, that and you're like, did you know that, I don't know, platypuses have beaks or whatever your little thing is when you're younger, and you spread that, and chances are at least one other person that you're telling didn't know that, or if they did, they forgot, or that may spark something in them to then look up something else or remember something else from before. And so it doesn't take very much, just that little bit of curiosity for sure is what you were saying.
Yeah.
Um, I think that also extends up into high school. And then even when you become an adult too, a lot of people lose that curiosity because there's such an abundance of information when you're older. Everything's at your fingertips. And you're like,
Right.
well, how do I distinguish what I'm interested in when there's so many things that are available to be interested in? So I think that transcends too. If you're putting the seeds in when they're younger, then that'll hopefully transcend into them being an adult and then maybe them becoming an educator because they thought that that was a great fit for them and they want to inspire that curiosity in the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exciting. So it's true to
Awesome.
the dream.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a great dream to have because it's totally achievable.
Yeah.
You just gotta listen to what people are interested in and how they learn. And we're in such an age now where that changes so rapidly. The type of content that is engaging or the type of information that people are interested in learning or things like that, especially with environmental education like climate change and flooding, especially in areas. I would think being in the States, that's a big thing that people are curious about is the effects of that and how much that'll change over time. Because you go around to multiple states, correct?
We do. Yep. We work with schools and districts across the United States. And so yeah, and what's of interest and how to make those local or regional connections feels
Mhm.
so important. And so for some places it's flooding, for other places it's wildfires. Like we just moved to a state that has earthquakes, but we came from a state that had hurricanes, right? And sort of, but really using that and helping students think about how do we ask questions? how do we collect information so we understand and we know, but also that stay curious of, oh, how is this different than the last one? Or how is this different than when my parents were growing up? And sort of using those lived experiences as stepping stones into broader conversations, and not doom and gloom, but in, creating this empowering situation where where kids realize that what's exciting is learning new things and thinking critically and being curious, not just remembering facts to regurgitate. Because not I think that that critical thinking, that curiosity, that carries forward to their dinner table when they go home at night and talk to whoever they live with, as well as carry forward into adulthood, as you were saying, so that it's not about content, it's about how do we think about it and how do we connect and how do we make it relevant of a, oh, okay, you're teaching me about atmospheric circulation, but what does that actually mean for the weather patterns I'm having right now? And those connection points, I feel like that's where sort of it's muddy and it's murky, but also where all the excitement is. And that's where that human interaction and human connection of education is so exciting, and I think so critical, especially for environmental science, environmental studies components, right? We can't AI our way through this. We have to actually talk to each other and think about things. And well,
Yeah. And there's not blanket solutions either to anything when it comes to the environment. Even different portions of rivers behave differently in the same river.
yeah,
There's different types of people that live along different parts of it and different land use. And so everything is, just as an example for rivers in particular, because that's my favorite. But it's really important to get those regional thoughts going. And I think as well, when you spark that curiosity and that interest in learning, like the information is obviously interesting, but the interest in learning things, I think, is the thing that's the most important, because if you're interested in learning, then you're going to keep learning about different things throughout your whole life. There's not a day that goes by, intentional or otherwise, that you don't learn something new,
right.
you know? And why not make it intentional with something that's even more interesting? And I think that then fuels ideas for solutions in the
Yeah,
future as they get older. We hear more and more, I think maybe because we can easily contact and share this type of information now, but of all of these projects from young people, that they're developing solutions for common problems that we've had for decades, or even only in the last couple of years. And we saw that with COVID, which I know wasn't really an environmental issue specifically, but how quickly young people stepped up and had solutions for things that directly impacted them and their community.
mhm,
And I think that type of thing is spread a lot easier as an idea than environmental education, but I think that's because it's more well known,
right.
and if we can get things for the environment up to that level, then we can have even better solutions than the ones that we have now. So yeah, I think the work that you're doing is fantastic. I think your mindset is incredible. You're obviously an inspiration for people over here in Canada anyways, but definitely people in the US. And I was wondering if you had any advice maybe for young people or people that are looking to go to post-secondary, maybe pursue a career in the environmental field or the education field, maybe some advice or thoughts for those people.
Yeah. Oh, what would my advice be? My advice, well, my biggest advice is like trust your gut. And if you're excited about something, if you have an idea, if you have a solution, like we were just talking about, tell someone. Like
Yeah.
don't sort of really trust your creativity, your interests, and pursuing those. I think the other big thing, I mean, my big advice, sort of career advice, sort of goes along with that, which is always like try what you want to do rather than what you think you should do. And I used to get in trouble when I worked at Rutgers University because the undergraduate program coordinator arrived at my desk one day and she's like, "You need to stop telling our undergrads not to apply to grad school." And I was like, "Well, hold up. I never tell people not to apply to grad school. I ask them what do you want to do? And then it results in this great conversation of like, well, what are your interests and what are you excited about? And can you pursue that either as a hobby or as a job prospect? And if you don't know what you want to do, that's not the time to go to grad school, right? I mean, like try things and do other things. Or if what you want to do is not grad school, then do what you want to do and get that work experience, and then it might bring you back to graduate school if you want to do graduate school or if you need it. Or like even if you need college, I feel like this also applies to like 4-year programs as well of a like try what you want. I don't know. I came from a space where it was I was on my path. I was on my linear path. There was one linear path and I got so much benefit and just broader exposure and experiences from having the courage to step off of that linear path. And every day doing what I do now, I use all of those different experiences from being in the classroom and out of the classroom teaching and in the lab and in the field and doing policy, because I did policy for a while. Like that all actually comes through on a daily basis as I run this education company for teacher professional learning around data literacy, which didn't even exist as something when I first got on that linear path. And I think this is a very meandering answer, but I just try to really be like, no, you have a sense inside. And if something comes up, if an opportunity comes up, and if that sort of resonates, listen to that and pursue that. And I will say, because I don't want to be totally Pollyanna, and I worked service jobs to like make that work, right? Like I lifeguarded while I did an internship because I couldn't afford to only do a free internship, right? And so I sort of learned how to be creative to make it work, which is also why I was like, it can be a hobby or a job, but just really listen to what resonates. Yeah, I guess that would be my advice of like, you, and it's okay if you don't know every single step, because I
Yeah.
love where I am now, but I could never have told you that this is where I wanted to be even 10 years ago, let alone 20 plus years ago when I was making some of my earlier career choices. But at each sort of fork in the road or as opportunities came up, I tried to be like, oh, what resonates towards something or what was like big flashing warning signs, time to walk in the other direction and like try something new. So maybe that's helpful. Listen to yourself rather than like outside voices, I guess would be my biggest advice.
It is helpful. I think it's very easy to get swept up in the, okay, well, in order to do this, I need to go to university for 4 years, and then I need to get this job for this year, and then I need to do 10 years at this company in order to get the experience to get this certification. That I need to, and it's so easy, especially in the environmental field, especially if you want to do some level of science in particular as your career, to get caught up in those mandatory requirements to get where you think that you're supposed to be. I was one of those people. And then I started my company and I went, oh, I actually love this so much. I would rather do this every day instead. And, it's similar to where you were at, where you were like, I could not have pictured this however many years ago, but now that I'm in it, I can't imagine anything different. And I'm so happy to have listened to that intuition. And I think everybody has it and they get swept up in those requirements. And so I think that advice is fantastic advice. And especially in the world climate we're in, where it's so easy to make a positive impact if you want to.
Yes.
There's so many resources to help you do that. And we're not in an age anymore where there's 5 career fields. Pick one and stick with it because that's what you're supposed to do. You can do anything you want to do. There are people that go and make coral reefs from nothing as a job. Like nobody probably said that to them when they started doing that, but they were like, hey, that'd be a cool idea. What if we just did that? And then they did. And that benefits so many species and us as educators to then tell other people about that kind of thing. And then maybe they'll go and do that as a career because they think it's cool. So that's the best advice. I appreciate that advice.
No, I will say there is a time and place for credentials or degree programs
Absolutely.
or things like that. And so but enter them when you know what it is you're getting out of it, right? I mean, I think that's the piece that I sort of keep coming back to of like, I mean, I deeply appreciate I mean, my family makes fun of me because I seem to collect degrees. Like, I have 2 master's degrees and a
Right.
graduate certificate program, and I greatly benefit from all of them, but I
Yeah.
did them when I was like, I have this need, this can fill my need.
Yeah.
Great. And I was, I was directed, I knew what I wanted, I was getting it out of it. And then there have been some other times where I'm like, no, I think life experience is far more important than like working towards that thing. And I have to remind myself of that because sometimes I can feel a little bit like an imposter when I land in rooms with people with more
Mhm.
degrees or more credentials than I, and I'm like,
Yeah.
but I live this every day. So like I bring that experience to the table and really sort
Just
of,
as valid.
yeah, like pursuing your passion and owning your expertise. I guess that would be the other piece of my advice of like you've got a lot that you're pulling from and coming from, and stand in that with confidence and really bring that to any room because it's really unique. You have something different than I could bring to the room, and we need all of us together
Yeah.
creatively thinking about things to solve problems and to inspire other people, as we were saying earlier, right? That curiosity, that inspiration that we're after, we need all of us showing up with owning what we bring to the table. I think that's the best way to go forward.
I agree. You know more than you think you do.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, and just because somebody else knows more doesn't mean that you don't know enough.
Yeah.
You know, and it's so easy to compare other people, especially like you were saying, when you walk into a room and somebody has more degrees or they have more experience or they have more connections or whatever. It's easy to feel like you don't belong in the same room, but you do if you want to be.
Yeah.
If you are interested in being in that room and learning that thing or doing that thing or meeting that person, then that's where you're supposed to be. And yeah, I think trusting that is important. I think credentials are important if you're working towards careers where that is a requirement or a preference for sure, but have smart goals. Don't just do things to do them.
Yeah.
You know, don't just do them because you think you're supposed to. There's a million ways to get where you want to. And this career chat series has been the most eye-opening thing to realize that I wasn't alone in that journey of, okay, well, this is where I started out, and then I did this, and then I did that thing, and then I went over here and did that thing, and now I'm doing this thing. It seems like that's everybody's career path that has ended up in a place where they're happy,
Mhm.
because you don't really know what you want until you try something. You know, unless you're
Yeah.
one of those people where there's always those people where you grow up and they just knew what they wanted to do since they were 5 years old. But that's the exception, not the rule. Most people don't know what they want until they get into it and then it clicks for them. So, yeah, have smart goals. If you know that you want to be in a field that has certain certifications, then definitely work towards those. But if you don't know that that's what you want for sure, then keep testing out things until you do know. And for many certifications, there's a couple different ways to get them. I know for RPGO, like a professional geoscientist certification, you either go the route of getting all your credits in school and then you do the 5 years of experience and they give it to you. Or if you don't do the school requirements, you get 10 years of experience and then they give it to you anyways
Right.
because it's equivalent. So I think I would tack on don't get discouraged. To your
Yes.
advice is don't get discouraged if what you're working towards isn't happening the way that you think it is, because more than likely it's taking you on the better path for than what you thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
But always trust your intuition because sometimes it might not be if you're not paying attention.
Well, so I was just gonna say, okay, now this is like so much advice that hopefully resonates
I
with
know.
someone.
One tidbit of advice and then it's
Right.
20 minutes
And it like
later.
sort of spitballs. But what I will say is like, but that trust your intuition in both directions.
Yeah.
Because there were moments when I was like, but this is what I thought I was gonna do. Like
Mhm.
I've done all the things. I'm pursuing the thing I want. And then I got in it and I was like, this isn't landing the way I thought it would. This isn't
Yeah.
and it's I mean, now that I'm older, I'm like, oh, that was pretty courageous. I like stepped off that track, right? But I think not to toot my own horn, at the time I was just like, this isn't working. I felt adrift. And in
Yeah.
hindsight now, I'm like, No, that was actually the best thing I could have done is be really truthful and trust my intuition. And so I guess sort of similar to my first piece of advice, but in both directions. So
For
if you
sure.
get on a path and it's you think it's the one that you want and it's not working out the way you want, trust that gut, that intuition of this isn't this sort of is round peg square holing. Like, what's a different thing that I can try? Because as you said, Shelby, like you can do anything at this, even more so now than a couple decades ago. Like there's
For sure.
so many different ways to pursue your passions, explore your interests, provide creative solutions, do good work. And sometimes it can take a little courage to do it, but it's so worth it in the long run. Okay, I'm done offering
It,
unsolicited advice.
my one add-on to that as well is nothing is a waste either. Like
Yes,
if you're
yes,
pursuing a path that you think that you want and you get to where you thought you wanted to be and it's not for you and you pursue something different, you learn so much from that that you
yes.
can then take on into future things. Nothing is a waste. When you're learning things, nothing is a waste of time
Yeah.
or your life. That's the whole point of being here for the time that we're here is to keep learning and enjoy as much of it as we can. So that would be another thing because I know I had that issue too where I was pursuing things and I got there and it wasn't for me and then I switched and I went, oh well, what a
Right.
waste because I'm not doing that anymore. So I can't use that, which is not true at
Right.
all.
Right.
You can use everything you ever learned ever about anything for any reason. So that's my tack on, but we'll get on two more tangents if we keep going. So I think that's that's a good amount of advice for today.
Yeah.
If there's nothing more, which I'm putting a cap, but if there's nothing more to add, then I think that's great for today. And it was wonderful to talk to you. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your opinions and your advice and your perspective on things. It's very refreshing and very encouraging, and I appreciate your time so much.
Well, thank you for what you do and for creating these career connections, these career chats and putting it out there and all the work that you are doing and also sharing your path and your journey because it's inspiring for all of us. And just as you say, it's good to remember, oh, I'm not alone. Like it's nice to remember it as well. And yes, so all that you're doing, thank you for the opportunity and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Of course, definitely. Well, thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, you too. Bye.